There's a lot to unpack about this new moon because not only is it happening during Mercury retrograde in the same sign, which of course the new moon will happen conjuncted, but it is also happening just 1 week before the barbelled basket comes exact with the Jupiter and Pluto exact opposition, their sextile with Neptune, the trine with Uranus. So it's like the 2 weeks before the new moon are truly about revision, introspection, and kind of like preparing for this new energy this barbelled basket will offer, because we will also have the lunar nodes enter Aquarius and Leo, and then eclipse season will begin, and we will have the first eclipse in Leo that we haven't had in the last 8 years or 9 years, and we will have the full moon in Aquarius 2 weeks after this new moon that will happen right conjunct Pluto and opposite Jupiter, activating this aspect pattern in the sky. So the new moon represents the halfway point between the old to the new that will unfold with all of these aspects and eclipse season unfolding. There's a lot of air and fiery energy coming after this new moon. And in what element do we have this new moon happening? In the water sign. There's a lot of water sign energy with this new moon. So before we dive into the chart of this new moon, let's look at the backstory and what happened before this new moon so that we can fully understand what these alignments mean. This new moon is happening after the full moon in Capricorn, and that full moon represented like the halfway point of 2026. It was our mid-year reset opportunity, and because it happened in the sign of Capricorn, this might have illuminated our results, all of the things we've worked on, and what is no longer working or serving a purpose, because this full moon actually happened in square aspect with Saturn, which is a challenging aspect. So during this time, we might have focused too much on what is not working, what isn't filling our cups anymore, what doesn't have or carry a meaningful purpose in our lives. So as the moon started to wane, this has been about releasing what no longer serves us instead of having our mid-year reset and moving forward, because that's not how it looks, especially because Mercury went retrograde right after this full moon. So a clear direction not possible, at least until this new moon and when Mercury stations direct, which will be this month. Let me check the exact date because I want to give you the details. So Mercury goes direct on July 23rd, which is just 1 week after this new moon. But though it's a time to start moving forward after the new moon, what we are moving forward with could be something of the past. It could be something we are giving a second chance, or it could be something that we should have done a long time ago. Because remember, Mercury is retrograde, so it is making us review and reassess our past, especially when it comes to what actually matters, what actually does bring emotional fulfillment. And we might already know because this new moon is happening right after Jupiter left this sign where it has been for 1 full year. So Jupiter has bestowed wisdom to this area of life. It has brought growth, expansion, and as it left, it might be very clear what is it that actually helps us grow in this area of life and what doesn't. Like, what are the weeds that you need to cut in this area of life? That is the Saturn square from the full moon, because if you have a Cancer placement around the 13-15 degrees, Saturn is squaring it. So that is the backstory of this new moon. We had that full moon that showed us what we need to cut, what we need to release, because it is no longer serving a meaningful purpose. It is no longer fulfilling us. So in order to have a successful mid-year reset, you actually need to be aware and recognize what is not helping you move forward. So these 2 weeks after the full moon, take it not to force yourself forward, trying to force clarity. Just pay attention to what is not allowing you to grow, what is not actually satisfying you in a very deep emotional level. Because if what you're working towards is not something that will truly bring fulfillment, then it will end up falling apart. But the next 2 weeks after the new moon, that is when things will start to rearrange and will start to move forward as you go towards a path that is much more satisfying and soul nourishing for you. So let's dive into the chart of the new moon. So the new moon will happen at 21 degrees Cancer. This is the third decan of Cancer ruled by the moon. So we have the double emotional energy. I feel that this new moon will actually be a time of emotional catharsis. It is a time ideal for deep reflection. How I imagine this new moon is someone journaling their feelings on candlelight after midnight and becoming very clear about what they want, what they desire, how they want to move forward, and sort of like reflecting on the past. Because there's a lot of things from the past coming up to the surface with Mercury Retrograde. Cancer is the sign of nostalgia. And we're coming out of a Jupiter in Cancer year, which collectively it has been all about like the nostalgia, appreciating everything from the past. And now that Jupiter enters Leo, we have all of these planets in fire and air signs. It's like we're entering a new era, which will come with a lot of memories in the future. But right now, it is something new. So there's nothing to reminisce yet. So right now we're like in the threshold. The past is still coming back. The new is starting to unfold, but it's not there yet fully. We are closing a chapter with this Mercury retrograde. We are tying up the loose ends because Mercury doesn't go retrograde just because. When Mercury goes retrograde, it's because there is something that needs to be reassessed. There is something that needs to be reviewed or resolved. So things that were left unresolved, it is something that will be assessed during the retrograde. And the fact that the new moon happens right conjunct Mercury, Mercury will be at 19 degrees of Cancer, just 2 degrees far from the new moon. This indicates that what this new moon represents, which always marks the start of a new cycle, it represents something actually reaching a resolution, especially considering that, of course, it is happening during Mercury Cassimi. If you don't know, Mercury Cassimi is when the Sun and Mercury meet in an exact conjunction. And this always happens during the midpoint of its retrograde transit. So to put it into perspective, if Mercury retrograde lasts 20 days, let's suppose, then the halfway point happens at the 10th day. And this is a time of the retrograde where things might no longer be too uncertain. It is the time of clarity. It is when deep insights come to the surface. Considering that it is in Cancer, an emotional sign, then this signifies that what is coming to the surface are old wounds and emotions that have been suppressed, perhaps connected to something that hasn't been resolved, a cycle you haven't closed in your life, a pattern that you keep perhaps repeating with someone else, a relationship, for example. A lot of people talk about it, sometimes it's very general, but considering that this Mercury retrograde is in Cancer and the past is coming back, yes, like the nostalgia could be leading to other people coming back into your life and texting you, telling like their true feelings because they might be needing closure. And it might be for you as well. Maybe you are the one that needs closure. But just so you know, sometimes you don't need closure by talking to that person, like if it's not possible. The purpose of this retrograde is to actually bring closure and close the cycle. So that is just one side of this new moon when it comes to like relationships. But when it comes to our objectives for our life's work, what we want to accomplish in our life, we are heading towards the halfway point. So now is truly the time to realign with what will be most soul nourishing for you, because you might have abandoned something that you shouldn't have put off. Now is the time to realign with that. So if there's a project that you left unfinished, a novel that you haven't been writing, and that is your goal, to finish that novel, then now it is the time to return to those projects, to return to it. Because that is why you might have been feeling perhaps dissatisfied or like you don't feel truly nourished. It's because you haven't paid attention to the stuff that truly matters to you. In the end, this new moon in Cancer represents a time of realignment, renewal, and redirection, because it is happening conjunct Mercury retrograde. So renewal, because we are letting our emotions run through and out of us, no longer keeping them suppressed, and that is something that can heal wounds. That is something that can help us close a cycle. This new moon is also ideal for a energetic emotional cleanse. So if you want to do a ritual to symbolize that internal renewal, then even better. And it's a redirection because, like I said, this is happening after that full moon in Capricorn that showed us what is no longer serving a purpose, what is no longer working or helping us achieve our objectives for this year. And so this is a time to redirect your path towards what actually feels aligned for you, because with the new moon conjunct Mercury, this is the alignment of the mind and the soul. It is a time to refocus on what truly matters, or what will actually fill our chalice, and what will nourish ourselves both internally but also nourish externally our lives, like a garden. Because not only is the focus within, it can also be without our relationships, our career, our home, because that all depends on where this new moon will transit in your chart. So where this new moon will be transiting in your chart indicates where you are meeting a redirection. It is where you're meeting renewal, because after all of this information you've gathered with Mercury retrograde, you're ready now to move forward with a clear heart, with a clear mind about where you want to go and how you are going to move forward. So this is where the new will come as you cleanse from the past, close the cycles from the past, and start to pursue and move towards what you actually desire and what will actually nourish you. Remember, Mercury will be going direct on July 23rd. So although we have this new moon, things will start to begin to move forward when Mercury turns direct. Still, during this new moon is when we reach the level of clarity that we need in order to move forward. So use this week to truly pay attention and write down everything that is coming up, because that is information you're gathering so that you can move forward and meet the manifestation of the intentions that you have for this new moon. So it will also be ideal to set intentions for this new moon when it comes to the area of life where you have this new moon. And these intentions should be centered on nourishing something, putting back your focus, or refocusing on matters in this area, and start to move forward in a way that is different than before, and it is much more aligned with what you desire in this area of your life. So if you like this video and you actually learned something about this new moon, I would love for you to like it and subscribe as I'm starting to make videos. So Aries, you have this area of your life in your 4th house of home, family, and inner world. So it's not only about your home and family, it's also about what is going on internally, your private life, everything that happens behind closed doors. So Taurus, this new moon will be happening in your third house of communication, your immediate environment. This house also rules neighbors, siblings, but it also rules like education and travel. So this is the area you should start to nourish again or realign with an idea that you've had for a while, and it's time to take action on it after Mercury retrograde. Cancer, this new moon will happen in your first house of self. So this has all to do with your appearance, how you project yourself, and your body, how you take care of your body. And also when it comes to your personal goals. Leo, you have this new moon in your 12th house of the subconscious mind. This is a time to release, to isolate, not to like be asocial, but to truly take care of your energy. It's a time to let go of what is no longer satisfying you in a deep emotional level. Virgo, this new moon will be happening in your 11th house of friends, groups, aspirations in life. So everything that I talked about, the objectives for the future, that applies to you. Libra, this new moon will be happening in your 10th house of career, public image. So of course everything that I talked about has to do with your professional objectives, what you want to achieve. This could also bring things about how you want to project yourself when it comes to your public image. Scorpio, this new moon will be happening in your 9th house of long-term travel, higher education. So this is all about the nourishment of your intellectual mind. Sagittarius, this new moon will be happening in your 8th house, making this a lot more emotional for you if it wasn't already emotional. The 8th house, the house of death, rebirth. It's a time of shadow work and also closing cycles in your life that have to do with what perhaps occurred in your past or what you need to heal from that has been repressed. Capricorn, this new moon will be happening in your 7th house of relationships. So this redirection, this realignment has all to do with the relationships in your life, not only romantic with a spouse, also with long-term friendships or business partners. Aquarius, this new moon will be happening in your 6th house of health, work, and routine. So this has all to do nourishing when it comes to your physical health, and also when it comes to your habits and your routines, they need to change. Pisces, this new moon will be happening in your 5th house of creativity, fun, and pleasure, but also romance. So this redirection might have to do with your romantic relationships, also closing cycles when it comes to like flings or situationships, circling back to old projects, creative projects, or refocusing on your children. Maybe they need more attention, more care.